what has changed in the Big Ten? Some Big Ten moves going on. As you all know, Jim Harbaugh has officially left the University of Michigan, head out to LA. I almost said San Diego, the LA Chargers, still getting used to that. What a great move for the Chargers. What a great move for Jim Harbaugh. And look, he's an NFL guy at heart. This is a guy that took the 49ers to the Super Bowl, lost to his brother. He's won the national championship now. Now he wants his revenge. Now he wants to go coach against his brother, and he gets another opportunity to do so. I'll turn over to my co-host Brad. Let's jump right into this. The Michigan coaching staff is going to have to replace a huge amount of guys, all the way down to strength and conditioning, special teams, coordinators, you name it. They've got to replace it. Now, we do know that they just hired Sherrone Moore as the new head coach. He gets upgraded from the offensive coordinator position. He was in a spot where he had to take over as head coach for a few games with the suspension of Jim Harbaugh. Has some experience, but with a whole new coaching staff and a whole roster reset, it seems like. Brad, where do the Michigan Wolverines stand next year? And can Sherrone Moore be that guy, or is this going to be a complete disaster up in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, Nate, you brought up a lot of really, really valid questions and a lot of good points. First of all, I want to say so happy for Sherrone Moore. This is a guy that I didn't know a lot about. And then, of course, you mentioned that he filled in several games during the Jim Harbaugh suspension. You know, just hearing his interviews, a really likable, personal guy. And you could tell a guy that those players for the Michigan Wolverines, they were ready to really play hard for him. He was so impressive in the days leading up to Coach Harbaugh transitioning to the NFL, leaving to the Chargers. You just knew that Sherrone Moore was the guy. Nate, it's interesting to me. This is a guy that is, I believe he's 37, 38 years old. He's a young guy. He's going to really have a great connection with recruits. Jim Harbaugh always had good recruiting classes. I think Sherrone Moore's got a chance to take it to the next level. Just like I said, a young guy, a personal guy. He's going to go into the homes of these high school players and really, really connect with them. And I think Michigan has really got a chance to just elevate its recruiting even more. You mentioned about the coaching overhaul. They've got a lot of new faces. Reading some Michigan team sites, the strength and conditioning coach is a big loss. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, that's a huge loss. He's a Michigan man. That's his alma mater. But Nate, the one that I'm really, really curious about is defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. This is a guy that I was super impressed with. He had done a great job. He's got an NFL background, but I was really, really impressed with him. I think he's a guy, Nate, that if the Chargers do really well, he's going to get some interviews to be. Maybe he comes back to college, or maybe he's going to be like, hey, the schedule's, the lifestyle and coaching schedule is better on me in the NFL. This could be a guy that starts to get some NFL coaching interviews. So that is a big loss. Nate, before I turn over to you, one final thing. Michigan's in a very interesting position from an offensive standpoint because they lose J.J. McCarthy. J.J.'s a good quarterback. I always thought that the running game helped him a lot. Obviously, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards made his job a little bit easier. But Michigan's got a little bit of a void there at quarterback. I'm interested to see what, of course, new head coach Sherrone Moore does. Does he rely on those guys that's on campus? Of course, we saw the big quarterback, Alex Origi, I believe is how you say his name. We saw him in the Rose Bowls come in for some packages as well as the national championship. Or do they maybe hit the portal again after it reopens after spring? So Michigan in a time of transition. Michigan's in a good spot, but there's a lot of overhaul in Ann Arbor. Sherrone Moore's going to do a good job, but Nate, at the same time, he's got his hands full there.
Yeah, look, there are so many open-ended question marks heading into the 2024 season for the Michigan Wolverines, and you've mentioned a lot too. We also want to talk about Jim Harbaugh's son, Jay Harbaugh, leaving Michigan. Now he's got a new job in the NFL. We thought it was going to be with his dad. Now we see that he's going to Seattle, so he's going to have his own shot in the NFL. So all the Harbaughs are going back to the NFL at this point. It seems like that's where they belong, and they love it there. And now Michigan loses their D-line coach today, and so Brad, they have a bunch of turnover. Now you mentioned Will they stick with the quarterbacks on campus? You mentioned the roster turnover of J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Look, this is going to be huge, huge. How can Sherrone Moore keep that program stable? Because to me, this is going to go one or two ways. Either they're going to be a consistent playoff team where Sherrone hits the ground running and this is a splash internal hire, or this could end very, very badly in a situation that reminds me of kind of two situations. Number one, at Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman. The guys love him. The guys support him. Great coach. They've utilized the portal. Now, has Notre Dame shown their full potential? I don't know. I think year three is going to show, right? We saw them struggle and lose to Marshall. We saw them struggle against some other teams. And this is going to be a big year for Marcus Freeman. I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I see this as a very similar situation, even like Mississippi State. Now, again, the circumstances behind Mississippi State are a little bit different than Michigan, but they hire internally with Arnett. That ends up being a complete disaster. And look, it does not get easy for Michigan this year heading into the Big Ten schedule. They got to play Fresno State week 1, which is not a joke of a program. Then they got to play, thank goodness they get them at home, Texas. They play USC in September as well. Minnesota, which we don't know what Minnesota is going to be like under PJ Fleck. At Washington, they play Oregon. They play at Ohio State the last week of the year, and then the Big Ten championship game if they are to make it. Brad, this is going to be tough. And
it's tough, absolutely.
Look, I hate to say this to Michigan fans, and I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash on this, but I'm going to say this anyways. Don't be surprised if Michigan loses 3 games this year. I mean, they could still be a potential playoff team. You mentioned the portal, right? We see offensive coordinator Cohen from Kentucky head back to the NFL. Does that leave a guy like Brock Vandagriff up for grabs in the portal? One of the main reasons he probably went up to Kentucky was to play for Cohen, and now Cohen's gone again. So that was a guy that was rumored a year or two ago to maybe go to Michigan, but now with Jim Harbaugh gone, you could go round and round in circles forever talking about this stuff. But the reality is they're going to have to replace both coordinator positions. They're going to have to replace all positions, and they're going to have to do all of this in a matter of 8 months and get ready for Fresno State and Texas and USC within 4 weeks. That's not going to be easy, Brad. I know USC has their struggles too with their roster turnover, with Caleb Williams leaving behind. But man, it just doesn't get any easier for them. Now, I will say, I also want to add this as well. I believe the quarterback's coach, Kirk Campbell, is expected to become the next offensive coordinator at Michigan unless they decide to go outside and hire someone externally. But he seems to be the next man up, Brad.
He's been announced as offensive coordinator. Yeah.
Okay. So that's one position secured right there, and he seems like a very great up and coming coordinator as well, who's going to have his shot this year. I think Michigan's going to be fine. They have the financials. They have the resources to bring in the right kind of coaches. It's really going to come down to, is Sherrone Moore the guy? Is he the Marcus Freeman, or is he the Zach Arnett? Only time will tell. I think they're going to give him 2 or 3 years to kind of figure things out. But, if you're a Michigan fan, you have to feel pretty good about your chances, right? Even with all the chaos going on. You have to feel pretty confident that at the very least you lose 2 or 3 games to Texas and Ohio State and maybe one other to a top 10 team, because Oregon and all those guys are going to be up there in the top 15, and try to work your way into the playoffs in the back end. I could be completely wrong and they end up running the table and Ryan Day's fired after Thanksgiving weekend and he's looking for a new job before Christmas. I don't know what's going to happen. That's too far down the line. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Michigan coaching staff turnover and what you think is ahead for the Wolverines.